question we have to ask then, this is the last point I want to finish on, is why would that be? Like, again, other than the idea of we are this unique nation that has this covenant with the creator of the world, and that's our sort of ace in the hole, that if we have a good relationship with him, then he makes nisim and niflot, he makes miracles and wonders for us. And so you don't need an explanation for how it's going to be okay. You could just trust it will be, and you don't see it coming because no one does, but the deck is stacked in your favor, right? I don't want to say that's incorrect. I think history has proven in many ways that that's a reasonable attitude to have for Bnei Israel to have about their experience in the world. And yet, it isn't the whole story either, and shouldn't be, because we should also not just lobotomize ourselves and say, okay, keep our kosher, trust in Hashem, and he'll work his magic. There's something a little too juvenile about that way of thinking, and that misses out on the opportunity to deepen our understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his ways and who he is. So we should also ask, why would it be the case that we could survive that kind of an onslaught? Like, why would you ever expect this tiny people to be able to weather such a tremendous storm? It keeps on talking about like they become like a cloud over the land. And there, I think we maybe do get the final hint from this connection to Parshat Ha'azinu, because Parshat Ha'azinu is this passage again that is partly talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the loving parent, the sort of mother eagle bringing food to her chicks in the nest, or the parent who's nursing the child with honey from the crag, and is it oil from the crag and honey from the flinty rock? Shem, no, was it Dvash Misela? I have to look it up now. It's וימכירהו על במתי ארץ ויאכל תנובות שדי ויניתהו דבש מסלע ושמן מחרמיש צור. He made him ride on the high places of the earth and ate the produce of the fields, and he made him suck honey out of a rock and oil out of the flinty rock. So this is more of this idea of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the nurturing parent. And the nurturing parent side of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the thing that's being referenced when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, I'm going to take all your enemies and they're going to be food for the birds when, all is said and done. And, the tally is counted and the battle is done. They're going to be the ones who, for whom this place will be a graveyard. And what it reminds us of, though, is the whole process, right? That this nurturing characteristic of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is something that's referenced before the left turn, where we go, worship idols, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends us into exile and hides his face. And the continuity of that, carrying all the way forward to the returning to the land, and Hashem not hiding his face anymore, so that we come back to the land and see the world and the land and our lives in the light of his countenance, like through his eyes, so to speak, where we understand something about his role in history and in our lives, right? That if that continuity runs all the way from Parshat Ha'azinu through to Sefer Yechezkel and the War of Gog and Magog, then what it's telling us is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is preparing each of our steps, right? That he's nurturing us, that he's cultivating us, that he's shaping us, that he's bringing us into being the whole way through. And what that means is that we have, in the interim, become what we needed to be in order to weather the storms that we now face. That the world doesn't even yet really comprehend what has just happened, so to speak, right? Just happened meaning in the last 100 years. A nation of people with a Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we have had now for over 3,000 years. was scattered all over the world and spent millennia surviving like Esther and Mordechai, right? Developing untold capacities to look at societies from the inside and from the outside and understand how they work and survive in them a different way than anyone else had figured out how to survive in them, and to look at the idolatries that are going on there and to break them down and to analyze them and to make sense of them and to see why they work and see why they don't work, and become black belt expert idol smashers of every kind. That you could take that people with those Esther Mordechai capacities and bring them all, or bring most of them, back into the land. And not just that, but to bring them into the land with that event corresponding to the fulfillment of such a tremendous longing and such a tremendous hope that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was still there and that he was still keeping his faith with us, and that if we kept our faith with him, that he would eventually bring us back. So that now you have this situation where, yes, the society is still very fractious and there's lots of idolatry of different kinds in the religious world and in the non-religious world, and it's all very hard to, get it to work together. But nonetheless, what you actually have is now, in this tiny strip of land, a totally unique collection of different kinds of people who have had, as a set of cultures that have evolved for millennia, unparalleled training in the kinds of intellectual and social and cultural resiliences that are required in order to resist the temptations of all sorts of idolatry that are going to be constantly on offer in the globalized world that we live in, and to break them down and make sense of them and figure out what's useful, take that part and throw away the part that leads to some kind of blinding worship of the wrong thing. And on top of that, we're filled with this sense, many of us are filled with this sense of confirmation of the substance of our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Like knowing for sure that he's there, that he's with us, that he brought us back as he promised after thousands of years. And what's funny in a way is, when you listen to Western conversations about Israel in the current political climate and everything, is that people don't even understand the degree to which that whole discourse exists in a different universe. They're all talking to each other about their ideas of, whether Israel should exist or whether it should have been brought into being and whether it could be caused to not exist or we could change it in this way or in that way. And they don't see and they don't understand that this is already past a point of no return. We have brought this unique people who have been all over the world for thousands of years back to this place and filled them with a sense of purpose and relationship to Hashem. And we're way past the ignition temperature. Like, this is a millennial historical process that is just getting going and that is utterly unstoppable at this point. And that's not just a sort of a hope or a guess. This is also another thing that we see promised in our in the Nevuot of the Hebrew prophets, right? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't himself bring a pregnancy, so to speak, nearly to term only for it to miscarry, right? That this has so many of his fingerprints on it at this point and is so developed to near maturity as a historical process, this ingathering of the people, the development of a national center in the land of Israel, and all that that entails with a national and cultural life that's oriented towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, relationship to him and Torah and the temple and everything else. All of those things are, on the menu. Not all of them are fully realized and worked out yet, but the process of metamorphosis and transformation and germination and the sinking of roots and the flowering of the tree, or however you want to put it, those processes are at work in a way that brings together so much unique adaptability, talent, intellectual and cultural resilience, and everything else, that if there were ever to be an imaginable circumstance, even from the standpoint of some kind of rational wisdom, where you could say, how could it be that a tiny little country could stand against some plurality of the nations of the world, and win? This would be it. And that doesn't mean we know exactly how it can happen. And of course, we still have to rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu for nisim, for miracles to make up the difference. But at the end of the day, we now, at present, have this tremendous bounty of gifts, like all of these delicious, rich foods that HaKadosh Baruch Hu fed us with in Parshat HaAzinu, so to speak, at our disposal, that we have been honing and refining in our national treasury of talents and capabilities for thousands of years. And if we maintain enough of this attitude of Hashem is turning his face towards us, and we need to see the world in the light of his face, we need to see our purpose in those terms and unite around that idea, then it's not so surprising that we could stand against the hurricane of whatever the great and mighty empires and nations in the world around us want to throw at us, and that they could end up being dashed on the rocks.